Hello and welcome to today's Partner Academy Live webcast. You're listening to the Time to Thrive webcast series presents The Power of Connecting the Dots. Welcome to the next in our monthly webcast series dedicated to helping you increase sales excellence and help your career thrive. Join us the second Wednesday of every month at 8 a.m. Pacific for a new session dedicated to improving your sales performance. You can also participate live on Twitter at #TimeToThrive17. Our presenters today are Jeff Hilton, who is the president of Knowledge Circles, LLC, and Ken Thorson, who is the president of Acumen Management. And now, without any further delay, it is my pleasure to hand you over to your first presenter. Jeff, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Debbie. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're glad to have you here. I'd like to just do a quick introduction. My name is Jeff Hilton with Knowledge Circles. I've been involved with the Microsoft Partner Program since the very beginning. So about 30 years of working with them. My focus is on business coaching and success skills for partners. We run Microsoft Partner Peer Groups, and we help with project management and other ways for helping partners to grow their business. I'm also the founder of an organization called the Alliance for Channel Success. My associate today is Ken Thorson, and Ken is a member of the Alliance for Channel Success. Ken, why don't you tell us about yourself briefly?
Good day, everybody. I'm really excited to be with you today on this program because for the last 14 years we've been working with partners on creating higher levels of profitability and business success. The only thing I'd like to suggest is that you might want to check out our website, acumenmanagement.com, for additional free videos on hiring people. There's a free business assessment out there. Additionally, there's a free sales compensation assessment at acumenmanagement.com. My blog, Your Sales Management Guru, is also free and available to Microsoft partners, and each week we update it with new tips and ideas. And also on our website there's a free The Job of Sales Management. So if you're in a sales leadership position, I'd suggest you download that white paper. It's free, and you'll find other resources on our website. But we're excited to be with you today with a lot of information. I'd suggest you actively take notes, and I would suggest that within 2 weeks you come back and listen to this webcast for a second time. Jeff, back to you.
Great. Thanks, Ken. So let's get started, everybody. So we have quite a few topics today, and here they go. We're going to be talking about the importance of discovery in your sales process. I know you've heard some things about discovery already in previous Time to Thrive webcasts. We're going to drill down specifically on the importance of discovery and some techniques for discovery during the selling cycle. We're going to talk about challenges which all buyers face, and we'll talk about how to really understand the needs of your prospect. We'll also, very importantly, focus on understanding your prospect's personality. This is a key technique because it will help you understand how to best interact with that particular individual. And then finally, we'll talk about how to address long-term strategic requirements of your customer, which changes the nature of your relationship with them. So with that, let's move on to the next slide. I'll let everybody read this, but basically the idea is if you don't know where you're going, it doesn't really matter where you go. You have to ask questions. So Alice is walking through the woods, and she stops and asks the cat, where should I go from here? And the cat says, well, it depends where you want to go. And if you don't care where you want to go, then it doesn't matter which way you turn. So we don't want to wander aimlessly. We want to proceed with specific focus and direction. And our goal is to make sure that we're doing that. So you can think of it in the context of there's a potential opportunity with a customer, and the question becomes, how much of that opportunity do you want? Do you want to just sell 10%, 20, 30, 40? Obviously, you probably want more. How about 100%? Well, we know that we could be able to get that, but with the right discovery questions, you probably can actually discover more and maybe get, rhetorically, 115%. There's probably more things to be had in that given opportunity than we're often seeing. And so that's what we're going to focus on, how to go find more. And it's all about discovery. Discovery is obviously the technique of asking questions which gets the potential prospect to open up and tell you information about not just the opportunity at hand, but things about their company, things about their goal and their role, and various other elements. So first you ask questions, then you start selling. It's all too easy to just jump into selling right away, and you don't want to do that. You want to obviously have have a clear understanding before you do. And we'll talk about these techniques right now. So let's talk about a wrong way to do it.
Hi, Jeff. This is Ken. How much does SQL Server cost?
Oh, well, standard edition is $888. Hey, do you want to pay with a credit card or give me a purchase order?
Well, wait. I need the Enterprise edition.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. I'm going to have to go find out more, and I can call you back.
Click.
Yeah, that's what happens. You're going to hit a brick wall if you do that. Customer's going to hang up on you, maybe. But that's not obviously responding to anything to their needs because we just started giving them a price without even understanding what they needed. So maybe there's a better technique. Maybe the answer should be something like, it depends on the version you're looking for, the number of users you have, and all kinds of other factors, such as licensing options. But before we get to all of that, can I ask you a few questions?
Absolutely, sure.
Great. So tell me first, why do you need SQL?
Well, we're expanding our data center, Jeff.
Oh, that's nice. So how do you use it?
Well, we use it for all our line of business tools, extensively.
Oh, wow. So you guys are very committed to SQL. Well, how many users do you currently have?
Well, currently, we have about 1,000, but we're adding more.
Huh, wow. Is this for a project, or are you looking for budgetary pricing, or what's going on here?
It's a huge project. We just acquired a company that has 350 more users, and we need it on our platform next week.
Wow, next week. Do you need help with that?
Definitely. We need help with configuration, integration, and setting up all those users.
Ooh, we can help you. Those are some of the things. Can I discuss those with you? Tell me a little bit about the new company. Where are they located? What do they do? What is the strategy behind the acquisition? You can see that by asking those kinds of questions, you've gained the buyers or the prospects' trust, and you're obviously demonstrating that you're interested in their solution and how you can help them, as opposed to just trying to sell them something. I used to run an IT training company, and here's an example which would come up all the time. The salesperson would go to the sales manager and say, hey, I just sold a C# class to a new customer.
Great! How many students?
Oh, just one.
Really? Why are they learning C#? How many other people need it? What are they using it for? Are they developing apps for the web, Windows, or mobile? What else are they doing?
You know, I don't know.
Well, maybe you should find out.
Okay, I'll go do that. You can see the difference. I mean, do you want to sell one class? Do you want to sell 10% of the opportunity? Or do you want to sell 100, 115% of the opportunity? So now we've given you those examples. Ken, tell us about how the time works with this questioning process.
A lot of times when we're working with partners, we want to spend more time on pre-call planning, on discovery, and we talk about the need to find out who you're talking about, find out more about the company from a strategy perspective and where they're going with the organization, what the competitive environment is. And a lot of times salespeople come back to me and they go, that's going to take forever. I just need to find out the information that's necessary for me to put a proposal together and close the deal. Well, number one, I never talk about deals. I talk about opportunities as a consultative salesperson. What you see in this graph is, in effect, the time that you have in your sales process, whether it's 2 weeks or 6 months or 90 days, is the same no matter whatever product, Microsoft products you're selling. But the product-oriented salesperson spends a short period of time trying to understand needs. They then offer the proposal, and then they spend all their time trying to figure out why they aren't closing this. In effect, the salespeople of the future need to spend more time on need development, on individual personality styles, understanding various people in the organization, both informal and formal power, and then they offer the solution, and then they close. And you can see the close time is much shorter. So psychologically, what we're suggesting to you today is be prepared, understand what questions are critical at each stage, and actually the sales cycle is the same time. And as a result of attending the webcast today, you're actually going to be able to download our library of discovery questions to understand and be a more effective consultative salesperson.
Well, that's great. So what you're saying is that it's going to take the same length of time, but you'll wind up selling more and become a better partner to that customer.
Absolutely.
That's great. So what happens when you do that, Ken?
Well, the real idea here, and there are three types of salespeople, but what we're really suggesting is you need to move to the third level of sales professionalism. And it's really what we call moving from me, how am I going to close this, how much money am I going to make, to a we mentality. It's really trying to understand it's you and the client. We don't sell customers, we have clients. Consultative salespeople really move that whole relationship from something that I go through the 6 steps of the sales process and I try to close something meaningful, meaning you need to understand the person's needs, wants. You also need to understand how you're going to impact their company. One of the questions I like to ask with a lot of salespeople when I'm working with clients are, what is the impact on the company, on the application we're selling, on the software that we're developing? What is the impact? Why are they purchasing it? And why do they need it? And what they expect from it? And that's the idea of moving the relationship and the selling concept to something meaningful to them.
Great. So what are the benefits of discovery?
Well, there are many, but we wanted to break out these as important. Number one, the prospect gains better understanding of their own needs. You, as a consultative salesperson, obviously can help them understand their needs better. There was a recent article that most everybody's read, I think, in the Harvard Business Review, talking about the end of solution selling, the idea of trying to find pain. Well, everybody knows that. But what you're really trying to do today in today's professionalism is be disruptive and find unrecognized needs. And as you do that, you change the game. So the first thing is helping the prospect truly understand their needs. Number two, we determine that we can uniquely provide the information. What can we do that's unique that your competition cannot? In a Microsoft environment where there could be multiple partners competing for the same business, you need to stand out. By doing a better job of discovery, you might find an application for SharePoint that your competitors didn't find. You may find an opportunity in CRM or a use for CRM that your competitors hadn't thought about. So it's important you understand that you can differentiate yourself by doing better discovery. Number three, really allows us to figure out the ROI or the project justification. In other words, to justify the added value you provide, you need to make sure you truly understand, as I said earlier, what's the impact that they know about, the impact they don't know about, and how are they going to rationalize the investment? How are they going to make the decisions is an important element, but also why are they investing with you? So that's very important. Number four, though, is also critical from a benefits perspective, is that we want to develop a good trust and strong relationships with the prospect. Moving beyond information to a relationship, as I said earlier, becomes critical. The key words that discovery will bring you are trust and confidence. Without trust and confidence, a buyer does not buy. They must trust you. They must have confidence in you. And so it's critical that as you prepare for every call, you have your discovery questions. And based upon the discovery questions that you can download with us, you can also then learn how to probe for more. So in your sales meeting, it's important. We need to gain insights into the real power structure. I can't tell you how many times that as a salesperson myself selling software, ERP software, when I asked the president, are you ready to move forward? He or she would turn to their left, look at their CFO, look at their office administrator, their manager, IT person, and say, so what do you think? And so it's important to understand, as I said earlier, formal power and informal power. And discovery helps you identify each of the various people in the power structure. And then the last piece I think is really important is that the prospect begins to know that you understand their needs. I like to say that you need to make sure they know that you know what they know. And so it's critical that you build that. That's really the idea of value, of making sure you touch base with various people in the organization, asking them the same questions, seeing if you get the same answers. But discovery provides you a faster way to increase your win-loss ratio than anything else in the sales process.
Excellent. Well, we have a poll question. Ken, would you like to do this one?
Yeah, I think I'd like to suggest that how many of you ever ask a question like, what changes do you see in your business and marketplace in the next 24 months? Now, why is that important? Well, that is a very simple question, but it changes the conversation from talking about product, talking about Microsoft, talking about your partner organization. It's about them. And it's trying to get them to think further out. One of the things we're going to share with you at the end of the session today is really how to move your proposal to a solution recommendation and an IT flight plan. And this question allows you to get into the head of the key individuals about what changes do they see. If you're working too low in the sales process and you're talking to an IT person or you're talking to someone else, they may not have the answer to this question. And therefore, you need to be able to move beyond them into a key individual. So it's interesting, almost 50-50%. That's wonderful. Those of you who aren't, try this question in the next week, and you'll be surprised at the results you'll get.
It obviously starts changing the nature of the relationship between you and the customer because, again, you're demonstrating that you care about what they're anticipating, and you're looking for ways and ideas of how you can help them in the longer term. So every business buyer has a number of different challenges, but there's 5 which come up all the time. The first one is operational efficiency. These are not necessarily in order, but they're one of these 5. When you ask them why they're buying something, it's either to save money or make their organization more effective, or they're trying to manage costs, or they're trying to be more responsive to their customer needs, or they're trying to grow revenue within the business, or they're trying to increase their market share. It's interesting that these are pretty much the typical reasons why buyers are making a decision or talking with you about a potential solution. It's worth asking questions to understand which of these items, and it's probably more than one, is on their mind for the reason why they're asking for whatever it is they're asking for.
Correct, Jeff. And specifically, I like to ask the prospects, based on these 5 points, what is your number 1 priority, what's your number 2 priority, and what would be your number 3 priority that you want to achieve based on the software, the project that we're talking about? And that's why it's important to understand the concept of what they want, what they need, or what they must have. And it's important to also work in that area, not only from a budgetary management perspective, but also to really find the brain of value that you can focus on to say, this is what you really must have. Understanding that prospect many times should not necessarily know what they must have. And your job as a professional to go through the proper discovery sequence is to make the recommendation of what you feel they must have. And it's critical that you start to understand those 2 issues in every sales process. You might understand that conceptually, but I find many times when we look at individual opportunities, salespeople cannot differentiate between needs and wants, but what they must have.
And I like particularly asking this question because it also helps you prioritize the sequence of what you address in your proposal, as well as what you try to address in a current offer and a solution, as opposed to what you might defer to be delivered later. So if they say, look, I must have this, this, and this, you want to make sure you're addressing that. I'd like to have this. Say, well, we maybe can't do that right now, but we can do that a few months from now. They probably will be receptive to that, but at least it makes sure that you're focusing on the right things at the right time.
Let's go through a couple sample discovery questions now. And again, we're going to provide you a discovery questionnaire at the end of the session that you can use in sales organizations. So what do you need to accomplish, Jeff, in this program? What is this project going to do? What challenges are you trying to solve? And that's when you might ask them to rank those other business challenges from a priority perspective. What are you currently doing to resolve these business challenges? And how do they impact your organization? Those are good discovery questions that are open-ended, allow for conversation, and the important part, as you ask the question, based upon the answer they give you, you need to go deeper and look at other questions. So role play, getting used to asking this are very critical. Next. What is your time frame to solve these? Now, this is an important element, is that you're not asking, when are you going to make a decision? That is a wrong question. The question is, when would you like to be fully operational, implemented, fully trained, and what is your time frame to solve those business challenges? They may have 4 or 3 business challenges. One time frame may be in the next 90 days. One might be in 6 months, and maybe it's 12 months before I get to the third business challenge because they're interdependent or other things are happening like mergers, acquisitions. So it's important to understand the time frame in the prospects month. A lot of times I see salespeople trying to close based upon our monthly quota. You're closing based on their needs. I recently saw an email from a salesperson that they were sending it to the prospect saying, well, I forecasted this opportunity to Microsoft, and I need to know if you're going to make a decision this month. Wow, did I stop that quick? What we really want, you have to remember you're closing on their needs, and you have to know that through discovery. What do you see as the barriers to success? And that's, again, a good conversation. It could be a political barrier. It could be a funding barrier. It could be some infrastructure issues that you may or may not be able to solve. Very important to understand the components and what are the issues going on. It could be political between one department and another department. You never know, and that's why discovery is important. How will solving these challenges help the business? Going back to what is their benefit? At the end of the opportunity, I see a lot of people focused on cost or discount or end of quarter promotion, and they forget about keeping the cost or investment and the benefits to the prospect in equal proportions or greater proportions from a benefit perspective. So it's critical with good discovery. You'll understand the impact you're going to have, and at the end of the sale opportunity, you have to remind them of what that is. And what I like to do with that question is write a email back to the prospect or talk to them face-to-face, but I'd have a printed list of the 10 benefits or problems we're solving with them at that point in time so they recall what they told you and that you can come back and refresh their mind on the impact you're going to have on their business.
Right, and as Ken alluded to, after the presentation, when you'll be able to download from the tools and resources portion of the website, a long list of discovery questions you can ask before you make the call with the buyer, while you're discussing the solution with them, and then before you propose the solution. And so that'll really help you go through discovery. And so by doing this, you will understand their needs. Now, once you understand their needs, you also need to understand their personality. So you segue from understanding their needs to their personality, and then you can understand and how to propose your solutions. Now, to understand their personality, it's helpful to think of different personality types, and we have this nice little graphic which helps sort of put people into some buckets here. And people are not usually any one exclusively. They usually are a mixture of one or two of these different boxes. But Ken, why don't you step us through this and tell us about the different personality styles?
Jeff, this is critical, and we're only going to touch the surface. If you've not gone through a complete personality style selling course, we highly recommend it. It's very important as you move through the professionalism of your business. It will help you close opportunities more quickly, and it will help you in discovery as well. Essentially, there are four, and as Jeff mentioned, we all have pieces of all four in our general DNA and makeup. However, we all have a dominant personality, and we have a what I would call secondary personality. And there are assessments you can take to understand this and work with it. But we wanted to introduce this because in discovery and in closing, it's important to know who you're dealing with. First of all, you need to know who you are. And a driver, for an example, is very task-oriented, you see on the left-hand side of the screen, and very decisiveness. Looking at the watch, they're very bottom-line focused. They're looking at their agenda. You have X amount of time to make your sales call. We're going to show you some examples as we walk through this a little bit. But a driver wants to make sure there's an agenda. You have 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and they're going to make the decision. A persuader is also decisive, but they're more relationship-oriented. They want to be on stage. They want to be part of the decision process, and they want to be made a hero. They want to be seen as someone with vision and opportunity, and they have their thoughts of how they want to make sure things get done. Very relationship important there, but you'll also have a challenge keeping them on track. And we'll cover some of that in greater detail. A supporter is someone who is relationship-focused but cautious. These are the people I like to say, you want to put your arm around them or sit on one side of the desk. You don't want to be confrontational. You don't want to be too quick with them. You want to be aware of who you are, because if you tend to be a driver and you're attempting to sell a supporter, you need to change your style to meet theirs. And the last piece is the analyst. This is the person who's obviously analytical, they're cautious, they're task-oriented, they want to see the facts, and they want to work through that process. How you sell each of these, how you close each of these, how you go through discovery is an important element of understanding personality style.
That's great stuff. And so we're going to help you understand some of the questions you can ask to help determine their personality. So, for example, Ken, if I said to you as a salesperson, well, how much time do we have today? Give me an example of how that a driver might respond to that.
I booked you for 15 minutes.
Oh, well, how was your weekend?
You're down to 14 minutes.
Uh-oh. Okay, I better get focused. You can see that kind of personality is really task-oriented. So how will you make a decision about this?
Well, we've built a spreadsheet, and we're going to evaluate the 3 vendors on 15 different points on a scale of 1 to 5.
Wow, that sounds like an analyst.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what is your process to make a decision?
Well, we're going to meet after we talk to everyone, and there'll be 5 people in the group, and we'll all sit down and talk about how we feel about each of the products and each of the vendors, and it'll be a collaborative decision.
So that's a supporter, I presume.
Absolutely. People who are getting together to feel comfortable to make the relationship work internally as well as externally.
Okay, some other questions you can ask. Who else will be involved in your decision process? You can also ask things like, how was your weekend? Did you do anything special? If they kind of said, no, weekend was fine, let's move on, they're a driver. If they want to spend 20 minutes talking about their weekend and what they did with their children and that kind of stuff, you know that they're the kind of personality they are. Another one you can ask, it's a great question for both understanding their personality as well as just a great discovery question, is what outcome do you expect as a result of this meeting? They can tell you what their agenda is. Finally, a great hint, if you have the opportunity to be in their office, look around their office. How is it decorated? How do they have their office set up? Do they have a wall full of certificates and diplomas, basically a monument to themselves? Or do they have pictures of their family? Or do they have pictures of them playing golf and shaking hands with famous people? It really helps you to kind of figure out what kind of personality they are by using some of these techniques. Once you know their style, you can do a couple of different things. You can adjust your body language. You could change the tone of your voice. You could change your sales approach, and you could change how you're going to provide a proposal and their closing style. So we have this consistently for each of these different personality styles. When you're working with drivers, and I'm not going to read the whole list, but some of the things you do want to do is to be clear and specific. You don't want to ramble. Some of the things you want to do are be prepared. They don't really look to be personal. They're not looking for a personal relationship, so don't try to be personal. They want facts. Ask them specific questions. And when you download the deck, you'll be able to look at these. So once you're trying to close a driver, you might ask this question.
Well, the way I would approach this, then in your case, Jeff, having considered all of the options, I would strongly recommend the second alternative. We can then get your solution up and running in your 90-day time frame. Are you ready to begin the process?
See, very black and white, very clear, and this is exactly the kind of stuff a driver would respond to.
I use the word strongly recommend. That's the important issue there, because I'm using emotional words that they would relate to.
That's very good. So let's now talk about working with analysts. Again, different personality style. So you do want to be prepared. You don't want to be disorganized because they are typically very organized people. You do want to stick to business, and you don't really want to be informal. You want to list the pros and cons of your organization and your solution and your qualifications. And you don't want to rush them. They're looking for facts, they're looking for empirical data, and they're looking for reasons why they should make the decision to work with you. They value their time, and they're not looking for fluff, they're looking for reality.
Jeff, in reviewing all of the choices and incentives from Microsoft and comparing to your current situations and objectives, we believe the first alternative is your best choice. Now, let me review why we made this recommendation. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3.
So very factual-driven, very supportive of giving them the reasons why they should make the choice to select you and your solution. When you're working with a persuader, it becomes different. They do want socialization. They do want opinions. They do want to discuss their interests and ideas. They're not looking for facts. Well, I shouldn't say they're not looking for facts, but don't drive on to the facts. Don't talk down to them. Don't be cold and remote. Be warm and friendly. They want you to dream with them. They want to kind of have a relationship. So the technique you might use to close them.
Jeff, in your situation and with your expertise and vision of where you are taking the company, I'm sure that you will agree this solution makes great sense.
That's great. Thank you, Ken. I agree. Let's make that decision. And then finally, when you're working with a supporter, you, again, want to be personable. You don't want to rush them. You want to show sincere interest, and you don't want to be threatening them. You don't want to lose sight of their personal goals. They're not looking for you to force issues. They don't want you to debate facts. They do want a more casual approach. And very importantly, don't manipulate or threaten them with power. Don't make them feel uncomfortable. You want them to make the decision because this feels right.
Jeff, your situation is very similar to ABC Company. My manager and I feel very comfortable in recommending an approach comparable to that taken with ABC. Their president chose this similar solution with us for the following 3 reasons.
So that you can see, again, in that particular closing attempt, he's not just saying this similar to another company and kind of burnishing your solution, but he's saying not just I, but my manager and I both feel comfortable in recommending this. It really helps that person to feel great about the decision to work with you. So the name of this presentation is Connecting the Dots, and that's really what we want to do to drive all of this together. So you use discovery questions to understand their needs. You use more questioning and techniques to understand their personality, and you want to then approach your solution using those two together. And to really help do this into the opportunity of getting a much bigger thing than the immediate transactional sale is to make sure that you address their current need along with their longer-term needs. And by doing that in what we call an IT sales flight plan, you're able to move your relationship with them from just being a vendor to a trusted advisor.
Yeah, Jeff, really why we peddle this in IT sales flight plan is that we've all thought about or been flying, and we understand that a pilot has to create a flight plan. They have to figure out when they're going to take off, what the weather is going to be like. They then fly, and then they got to figure out where they're going and where they're going to land. And so they have to file that before every flight. Well, as a salesperson, what we want to do is change the framework of our conversations to not just focus on the SharePoint opportunity or the SL opportunity, the GP opportunity. We want to talk about longer term. That's why we ask the questions about where do you see your company going in the next 24 months, or what strategically, how are you using IT to be competitive in the marketplace? And you want to create a solution recommendation, not a proposal. A solution recommendation becomes part of the IT sales flight plan. Now, why do we do that? There's a lot of benefits to this.
What are some of those benefits?
Well, number one, it increases your profitability as a owner, as a salesperson, and enhances customer loyalty. Specifically, you move the sale from an individual deal size to one that's 6, 12, and 18 months. And you have a flight plan that you roll out. Today, we're going to solve your CRM issue. In 4 months, we're going to put in some SharePoint applications we're talking to them about. And maybe in 12 months, we're going to do something else around your website. So you see a longer-term opportunity, and now you're accessing new customers, new contacts. You're increasing your service revenues because you're filling ongoing projects. And actually, you'll have fewer competitors because you're addressing their needs, wants, and must-haves, and moving their thinking beyond what they're looking at today to what they need in 3 months, or 6 months, or 12 months. And so the roadmap or the flight plan really builds long-term relationships. So it sets it up very uniquely. And as a salesperson, We have ongoing annuities because you know in 6 months they're going to upgrade to the next one. It also helps the customer budget for each of the projects as well. So changing the game of discovery and enhancing your discovery skills, understanding the personality of the person, allows you to personalize the solution recommendation or proposal, fit their personality, and be able to present how you're going to impact their organization. So the flight plan is a very important element. And it's critical as you look at it, that you're really trying to build that 12, even an 18-month strategy that addresses their business strategy. So that's the last page of the solution recommendation proposal. There's an executive summary, obviously some information about your organization, the investment, not a cost, the investment they're making, and you then show them the 30-day, 90-day, 6-month, 18-month timeline for each of the applications. And that's an important time, we think, for what I call co-selling techniques that you've probably heard about before in previous programs. Bringing in additional people from your company, bringing in someone from Microsoft to help talk about the solution flight plan idea and laying out the roadmap or the flight plan for them to implement new solutions. All of that changes the way you do it. But without proper discovery and without the ability to connect the dots from personality styles, the discovery questions, understanding their business strategy, and then laying it out in a very concise flight plan, allows you to change the way you sell and move on to that trusted advisor status.
So, like any flight plan, we want you to take what we're learning today and turn this into specific actions. So our call to action for you is that we want you to write down 3 dates and times over the next 2 weeks when you're going to review the notes and use the information you've gotten today. You'll be able to download the slide deck. You'll also, as we said, be able to download a very extensive list of discovery questions. So each one of you in sales, or if you're in a sales meeting right now with a bunch of your colleagues, it's a good idea to write down dates and times when you're going to start using some of these things. And additionally, we want you to list 2 active prospects you currently have where you think you can use this information, and make a commitment to yourself that you'll come back to this and that you'll approach those customers with some of the techniques and some of the ideas we've shared with you today and see if this doesn't work. We want you to be successful, and we hope that these ideas and techniques, we're confident these ideas and techniques will make a big difference and will let you and your organization stand out as opposed to your competitors who are not using these techniques. We mentioned this several times. To help you use these ideas, we do encourage you to download the list of discovery questions. They'll be posted on the tools and resources portion of the website. And there's quite a long, long list in there, and I think you'll find them very useful, and they'll give you all kinds of ideas of questions to ask. And obviously, you put them in your own words, in your own language, but you'll see all kinds of things you can use to really change the nature of the relationship and connect the dots for your customer. We also want to invite you to come to the second part of this presentation. On May 8th, Ken and I will be doing the next version, which is called Understanding the So What Principle, and it's how to make your pitch relevant. And in this, you'll learn what some top-performing salespeople already know, which is to not assume that the prospect matches the features you're talking about with benefits. It's really important. I used to be in a different industry, and in retailing specifically, they always talked about if you're going to mention a feature of a product or a piece of clothing or anything else, you need to articulate the benefit. And you know this when you're buying a car or any other piece of any kind of equipment, people always encourage you to do that. So it's real important. But we see companies and people all the time who say things which make them sound like every other salesperson. We've been in business for 20 years. Well, who cares? What's the so what? So we're going to talk about that next month. We'll talk about how to make sure you're understanding how to put those benefits in the context of what the customer cares about by using the discovery processes which we talked about today. We'll talk about further how to differentiate yourself and your organization from your competitors. We'll talk about how to prove your value proposition, and we'll talk about relating your story to your prospects' needs and concerns. So it'll really connect the dots from what we're talking about today to really giving you the tools to be the kind of salesperson where you get 115% of the opportunity. and we'll focus on that on May 8th, and we want you to join us and register for that today. A couple of other minor notes. If you're going to the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference, which is here in Houston, Texas, in July 7th through 11th, we invite you to come and join us at some sessions which we're delivering. On July 9th, I'm delivering a session called Business Metrics. Every owner and manager should know and use. That's a very popular session. On July 10th, our Alliance members are tag teaming again for a session we did last year at WPC where we had about 800 attendees. It was called 50 Marketing Tips in 50 Minutes. We've updated it, and we're going to do a fresh version, and we encourage you to come for that one. And Ken will be doing a session on the same day called Becoming the Sales Leader That Drives Performance. And that's for both salespeople and sales managers, as well as, of course, business owners and business managers. So now we want to spend a few minutes and open it up for questions. If you do have questions, please type them into the Q&A on the top of the menu bar, and we're here to take your questions and help answer anything which we've covered today.
All right, guys. The questions that have come into the queue so far have not been regarding your content, but I did get one. Somebody's asking about a link to the recording. Yes, the live meeting replay will be available on the Academy website within 24 to 48 hours. And a copy of the presentation. Again, the information is proprietary, but you can print a PDF copy by selecting the printer icon in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen.
Okay.
Here's a new question that just came in.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get it right.
And again, I believe it's another question about the slide deck. Again, folks, print to PDF, which is the printer icon in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen.
This one had to do with the questions.
Oh, there we go.
How do I remember what questions to ask? Well, I get that question once in a while, and what I would do is download the questions that we're going to make free for you today. And before you make the call, go through that survey and identify 10 or 15 that you think are pertinent for that conversation, depending on where you are in the sales cycle, and bring that piece of paper with you. And as you ask the question, as you probe deeper, get the answers, write it down, right on that sheet of paper. Use that as a sales tool. Number one, you'll look more professional that you're not winging it. Number two, the prospect knows then that you are actively listening and actively taking notes. So use the discovery document as a tool. Hope that answers the question.
Right, that's a great technique. And buyers usually like that. I had a salesperson who worked for me once, and he always had a technique where he was taking notes, and just even if he didn't need this, sometimes he would say, I'm sorry, could you slow down a second? Because I want to make sure I get all of this. It was really interesting because it really showed that he was interested. And even though it was sometimes he was really frantically taking notes, it was a great technique. It really made the buyer or the prospect feel that this guy really cares. And so that's important.
Well, one thing we also recommend, Jeff, is that after the first and second discovery calls, because you may take you 2 or 3 calls to go through the kind of discovery you need to do, is that you should type those up, pass those back to the prospect and say, this is my understanding of the situation. I call it a situation appraisal, and get their agreement that what you heard and what you saw and your observations are critical for both people.
Right. That's a great technique in both, again, showing interest, but also helping validate that you understand it. It shows the buyer that you care. And often they'll come back and give additional information because they feel like they should respond to that and say, well, yes, that, and they might elaborate further and give you more information.
Great. We need to take the poll now?
Well, we have a call. We have a question here about which discovery questions do you recommend? Sorry, I can't see the full question here. To a cold call customer.
Sorry, to what kind of customer?
Yeah, to a cold call to a customer.
Oh. Well, I think part of the issue there is on a cold call. Number one, if you're making telephone cold calls, you're walking in face-to-face and making a cold call, so some of that situation varies. The key there is initially just trying to make sure that you gain where their frustrations are. What frustrates you about your current software? Or what frustrates you about your current firm who provides you IT services? Those kinds of things start the conversation because normally everybody has some frustration.
Right. Very good. There's another question. Is there an ideal salesperson personality type, Or can all personality types be successful as salespeople? That's a real good question.
It's a great question. I'm actually I wrote a book on recruiting high-performance salespeople. And in the book, we talk about that slightly in that there is no one personality. Most people think a persuader is the right personality for a salesperson. In effect, that may not be. You need to learn what personality your buyer is and adapting your own personality to that personality. So when we're looking at salespeople, we don't look at their personality, and there are some people who sell personality assessment tests. You've heard the word DISC. I don't like those because it doesn't test sales savvy and mental toughness and how smart you are. There are other characteristics you look at, and maybe in the future we'll do a webcast around how do you hire a high-performance sales team.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff, I apologize. Have you and Ken answered the question? A couple of folks are asking where do they get the discovery questions. Have you guys responded to that?
Well, let me do that now. Thank you. I saw that. So I think that the answer is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that it's going to be available on the Tools and Resources link on the Time to Thrive website after the presentation. Okay,
somebody submitted a comment saying that they see the March tools, so have some patience, folks. We'll try to get the April ones up. My hope is today, so but we will follow up on that.
And if you don't, for any reason, go ahead and email us and we'll make sure you get it, or we'll send you to the link. I do have one other question which came up, actually several. Somebody's asking, if you only deal with existing accounts, what would be the best approach to engage somebody who's either inactive or not really a responsive type of client?
Well, interesting. One of my clients happens to be in New York, and I was just talking to one of their salespeople within the last 48 hours about that same identical question. And what we're doing there is, if they've been non-responsive, but they've been a customer in the past, we're using a technique called a technology on-site assessment. And we're doing a discovery around what they're using, what software revisions they're using, or what types of software tools they have, what level they've been updated, what kind of hardware they may have installed. And it's a way to get the conversation going that every 2 years we need to make sure that any customer that we've worked with in the past has an updated profile on our system. And so the questions there in that situation tend to be a little bit more, I would call, technical, fact-finding. But as a result of that, then you can start to open up the conversation, and when you present your results back, then you can get into a more formal discovery.
Right, and I think that actually is a great question because it leads also to this next question, and I think the answer is similar in both. By understanding their personality, you will be able to come up with techniques which will help engage that person. So if you have somebody who hasn't been responsive, maybe try a different technique and focus on a different element and see if maybe they're of a different personality type than the approach you've been using. So the question which is up is how do you ask the right questions to somebody who is not interested in a relationship and is just rate shopping or just looking for price? Well, that's a valid point. I think that if you ask that question and say, are you looking for just the price on this? And what are you going to use as a criteria for making a decision? And if they say, I'm just shopping for price, and I'm going to buy from the least expensive provider, that's what I'm going to buy, whoever gives me the best price. Well, now they've given you a lot of information. You now know how to respond to that person. Now it becomes a question about whether you want to sell to that customer. You're not obligated to sell to everybody. If your organization and your approach is to be very solution-oriented and you don't really want to sell on price, you can just say to them, you know what, give them a price and it might be high and you know that they're going to go elsewhere. Well, on the other hand, if you still want that sale, you now know how to approach them. And every time you talk to that person, they say, I'm just shopping for price. You could say, I'll tell you what, tell me the best price you've got and let me see if I can match it. Yeah, if I match that price, would you give it to me? And they're going to come back, give you a price, and you can then decide if you want to match it or not. But you've removed all that issue, and now you have that person communicating to you in the context which they are of that personality.
One of the questions, Jeff, that is in the survey that we like to ask is, so why do customers buy from you? Why do your customers buy from you? Also, obviously doing pre-call planning, which is part of the discovery process document we've given you, is understanding what their website says. What is their value proposition? And if you find out why customers buy from you, why do your customers buy from you? And they go, well, we're always the lowest priced vendor in whatever business we're in. Then you understand the personality and how they're going to buy from you. And so that's an important element also in discovery, trying to understand how they're making a decision, but also understanding how they represent themselves. You know,
right.
I could say something like, we provide great value and our customer service is terrific. And your response would be, wow, you're just like us.
Right. And if they do respond and say, we always buy from you because you're the lowest price provider, that might be a business opportunity to consider increasing your prices. All right. Is there any other questions? If there are, we'll take them right now. And if not, we're going to thank you for your time and energy today.
I don't see any in the queue.
Okay. Well, with that, we want to also mention that there is one more opportunity to continue to ask questions. If you go to LinkedIn, there's a group. I think everybody here is in the Sales Specialist group. And we'll continue to take questions there and respond throughout the day. With that, we would like to thank everybody for joining us. And we do, again, ask you to join us in May 8th for the next part of this series. And with that, happy selling. Best luck.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. So, folks, what you should see coming up here is a link to a short survey. We appreciate you taking a moment to fill this survey out prior to logging out. You're going to need to enter your email address to access the survey questions. When you're in there, our voting scale is on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. So if you got some great information today from Jeff or Ken, or you have some feedback or recommendations for future events, we'd love to hear from you. When you're done, be sure to click on the Submit button at the bottom to ensure that your feedback is received. And with that, that does conclude today's Academy Live webcast. All materials will be available on the Sales Specialist site as well as the Academy website within 48 hours. I'd like to extend again a big thank you to our presenters, Jeff and Ken, and thank you, audience, for logging in and joining us today. You may now disconnect from the audio portion of this call.